Criminal Minded Media was the first podcast to bring you the secret Notorious B.I.G. FBI Files series. Now they've launched a second podcast series of more secret FBI files into the murder of Biggie. Here to tell us about them is CMM senior producer Johnny the Greek. I just like saying that because I can't say your last name, Johnny.
Anagnopoulos, but I like Johnny the Greek as well.
Because that's what you are.
Yes.
And this is so important here because when the first time around of these FBI files, it uncovered quite a bit of not just the murder of Biggie, but what was going on with the LA Police Department. So let's refresh people's mind very quickly about the first set of FBI tapes on the notorious Big murder.
Sounds good. So season 1 of the dossier really revolved around our friend Don Sikorski. You and I have both known for a long time. He was able to convince a retired FBI agent by the name of Phil Carson to go on the record. Phil was the lead investigator, not just into the murder of Biggie for the FBI, but Phil was brought onto this case because of his background investigating LAPD corruption. And these two things kind of tied together with regards to some of the suspects in the Biggie Smalls murder. So season 1 really was Phil Carson telling his story, as well as a little background into just some of the craziness that went on inside the LAPD in the 90s.
Yeah.
Some of these officers were robbing banks, working for the Sinaloa drug cartel, stealing cocaine from LAPD's evidence locker. It was literally like training day.
Yeah, and this is all in that first podcast. But the thing that's very interesting is that, like, at the end of this, or in the middle of this, Don says, God, I'd love to talk to the man that actually got this all rolling, which was an undercover police officer who got into a shootout with actually one of the LA police officers who was on, of course,
on Suge Knight's payroll. Yes.
So again, how'd that come about with this all going?
So it's funny, you know, because season 1 was such a success and the evidence we brought forward is respected by those who want the truth out. We were actually contacted by him. He reached out to us with an email. The name of the retired detective is Frank Liga. Frank Liga, a little background, 9 days after Biggie was murdered, Frank Liga stops at a stoplight, looks to his left. There's an African-American gentleman in an SUV. Words are exchanged. Next thing you know, these two men are shooting at each other. Frank Liga shoots and kills the African-American gentleman. Turns out that African-American gentleman was also an LAPD officer by the name of Kevin Gaines. When they run the license plates, it turns out that this SUV was registered to Death Row Records, and that whole labyrinth or Pandora's box is open. So Detective Liga has not spoken to the media in over a quarter century since this all happened. He spoke to PBS Frontline once and then went radio silent. So he reached out to us to tell us that he'd listened to the podcast and what we were doing was on the right side of the law, as he said. And he said he was ready to go on the record with us. So on top of the FBI documents, we were actually able to get retired Detective Liga to go on the record about the Gaines shooting and kind of this cross-section of Dirty Cops and Death Row Records and everything else.
Wow. Even to the point, I want to mention, too, that Don has uncovered so much that they produced a movie,
yes.
City of Lights,
yeah.
with Johnny Depp and Forrest Whitaker.
Great movie.
Which, again, talks a little about it. But Don's not done doing that. We got to mention that he also is into a lot of different crime kind of podcasting. Why is that such a big thing with people?
Podcasting? True crime podcasting?
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of secretly wants to solve crimes. I mean, you can see it from when the game Clue came out 40, 50 years ago. People are fascinated by others solving crimes and by their ability to kind of look at a situation and a puzzle and try to put it together. And it's amazing how popular the true crime genre has become. And you know, we're lucky enough to be a part of it, but it really stems from the fact that Don, who's our leader for, you know, since Criminal Minded Media was founded 4 years ago, but Don has been investigating this type of stuff since, I want to say 2003 or 2004.
And so, like I said, we know Don, and just sitting with him when he explains some of the stuff that he's working on, you're like, wait, how'd you get to that? How'd you get into that?
He's
been to prison and talked with the people, the different mafia, and it's so crazy. And I know Rick Phillips, who's also part of the team too. I mean, it's incredible how you guys get all these. But again, the podcast is out. It's ready to go. Where can people find it?
They can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called The Dossier. You can actually, it's showing on the screen right now, our show cover. You can literally find it anywhere you want, from Apple to Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram at thedossierpodcast.com. And we've just created a Patreon page for some more exclusive content, things that you can't find, on our regular podcast. So we're trying to expand a bit, give more information, and really just get the truth out there regarding this murder.
Wow, it's amazing. So, hey, thank Johnny for coming in. Johnny the
Appreciate
Greek,
it.
ladies and gentlemen, Johnny the Greek. And hey, listen, if you love crime talk and shows like this one, here on the CW7, a new series called Crime Nation is premiering tomorrow at 7. So make sure you tune in for that. And again, it's just all these crime shows. Just amazing. So we got one coming right here to airs on CW7.